There's a quiet lie we've been taught to believe that the word is broken somewhere out there, in governments, in systems, in the people who disagree with us. So we argue, we protest, we try to redesign the surface of reality. While the same fears, the same wounds, the same hunger for power and belonging keep living inside us. But what if the world isn't only shaped by politics and leaders? What if it's shaped by the parts of ourselves we refuse to meet? What if every conflict outside equals something unresolved within? This space isn't here to give you answers, it's here to hold a mirror. Because maybe fixing the world doesn't begin with changing others. Maybe it begins the moment we dare to face our own shadow. Enjoy the show.
I was looking at the news this morning, which is usually a mistake, honestly, but it really struck me how much we talk about fixing the world like it's a broken appliance.
Oh, yeah, like it's just a mechanical issue.
Right. We think if we just vote for the right guy or pass the right bill or maybe ban the right plastic straw, the machine will start working again. It's this total renovation mindset. You knock down a wall, slap on some paint, and just hope the house stops collapsing.
It is entirely the prevailing worldview right now. But the stack of research we are diving into today suggests that the blueprint itself is actually the problem.
Yeah, and that's what makes this so fascinating. We are looking at the Shadow to Freedom series by Bamboo Nomads.
And their central thesis is, well, it's a really hard pill to swallow for a lot of people.
It really is. It basically argues that you cannot change the collective reality, the wars, the polarization, the economic collapse, without first confronting the absolute darkest, most hidden parts of your own psyche.
Exactly. This isn't your typical manifest your dreams kind of fluff. It reads much more like a strategic roadmap for survival.
Yeah, the Bamboo Nomads team is trying to build what they call a conscious nomad network. And they definitely aren't just winging it. They've built this foundation on some incredibly dense intellectual bedrock. It's this wild interdisciplinary stack. You've got psychology, sociology, economics, spirituality, all sort of mashed together. But before we get into all that theory, I think we have to ground this for you listening.
Absolutely. The whole series is anchored by the founder's personal story, which is essential context.
I found it fascinating because it acts as a prototype for literally everything else we're going to discuss today.
The anchor story, yes. So the founder starts his journey in Syria, literally in a war zone.
Just total devastation.
Right. He is surrounded by fragmentation, destruction, and basically the ultimate failure of the collective. It is a place where safety is entirely non-existent.
Then he moves from that environment from Syria all the way to Bali. So geographically, he goes from a place where the social field has completely collapsed into violence to a place where the community rebuilt itself through connection.
Precisely. And the core argument here is that this geographical journey mirrors the internal work we all have to do.
We have to move our internal state.
Exactly. We have to move from a war zone, which is defined by defense, fear, survival, to an ecosystem defined by growth and safety.
I mean, it sounds really poetic to say, heal yourself to heal the world.
Sure.
But practically speaking,
how does it actually work?
Right. How does my personal therapy session actually stop a war or fix a broken economy? That feels like a massive, massive leap in logic.
It does feel like a leap until you understand the mechanism of the split.
The split. Okay, let's get into that.
That is where we really need to start. Why are we fragmented in the first place? Why do we have these wars? And for that, the materials point us directly to the work of Dr. Gabor Mate.
This is the attachment versus authenticity concept.
Right. So Mate posits that every human being has two fundamental non-negotiable needs. The first is attachment.
Because we're mammals.
Exactly. If an infant isn't held, looked at, connected with, they literally die. Attachment is survival. It is not optional.
Okay, got it. And the second need?
The second is authenticity. This is the capacity to know what you feel, to be in touch with your body, your inner GPS, basically.
Like biological integrity.
Yes, knowing when you are hungry, when you are safe, when you're angry.
So ideally, we get both, right? We get to be ourselves, listen to that gut instinct, and we get to be loved and held by our caregivers.
Ideally. But in our modern culture, and certainly in the environments most of us grew up in, what Mattei calls a tragic transaction occurs.
Tragic transaction.
Yeah. Think about it. If a child expresses their authenticity, say they get really angry or loud or just exuberant, and the parent is stressed out or just can't handle it, the parent withdraws attachment.
They get angry or they ignore the child, send them to their room.
Right. So the child's brain does a very quick, entirely unconscious calculation.
If I am me, I lose the love I need to survive.
Exactly. And because attachment equals survival, attachment always wins. The child suppresses their authenticity to maintain the bond.
And Mattei calls this small trauma. Right.
He does. It's not necessarily that you were beaten or starved. It's that you had to sever the connection to your own gut feelings just to fit in. You had to abandon yourself to keep your caregivers.
Wow. And this creates what the sources call the false self.
Yes. We construct a personality that is designed purely to keep us safe, not to express who we actually are.
We become kind of ant-like.
Right, fulfilling social roles.
Yeah.
The good employee, the quiet student, the high achiever. Meanwhile, our true self goes completely underground. We become actors in our own lives.
And the Bamboo Nomad's source material points out that this isn't just a personal tragedy. It's actually an environmental issue. It mentions that environments either extract energy or regenerate it.
That's the key link to their whole philosophy. Most of our modern institutions, corporations, schools, even cities are designed for the false self.
They're extractive.
Highly extractive. They rely on you suppressing your actual needs to serve the machine. They want the ant. They don't want the human.
Okay, so we have a world full of people operating as their false selves. We are all walking around wearing these masks, terrified of losing attachment. But energy is conserved, right?
It doesn't just disappear.
Exactly. You can't just delete your anger or your creativity or your fear. So where does it go?
It goes into the basement. And this brings us to the scariest and arguably the most important part of this deep dive, the shadow.
Okay, this is where we pivot to Carl Jung. And I want to be really clear for you listening because the word shadow gets thrown around in pop culture a lot.
Yeah.
We aren't just talking about evil thoughts or, wanting to rob a bank.
No, not at all. That's a super common misconception. The personal shadow is simply everything you had to hide to survive that tragic transaction we just talked about.
So it could be your rage, sure.
Right, but it could also be your creativity, your sensitivity, your personal power. It's basically the unlived life. It's everything that didn't fit into the false self.
Okay, so I have this heavy bag of unlived life dragging behind me. Why is that dangerous to the world? Like, why does my personal baggage matter to the collective geopolitical situation?
Because of what Marie-Louise von Franz calls the bridge to mass psychosis.
This part of the research really stopped me in my tracks.
It's intense. She worked closely with Jung, and she did this deep analysis on the rise of Nazi Germany.
It's a terrifying case study, but honestly probably the most effective one to explain this.
It really is. Her argument is that the German people didn't fall into that evil because they were inherently monsters. They fell into it because they were deeply disconnected from their personal shadows.
Can we break that down? How does not knowing my own shadow make me susceptible to that kind of horrific regime?
Well, think about the false self again. It wants to be good. It wants to be safe. It wants to follow the rules. In 1930s Germany, you had a population that was terrified of financial ruin, terrified of chaos.
Right, coming off the Weimar Republic.
Exactly. But instead of admitting, I am terrified and I feel insecure and I am greedy for safety, which would be facing their own shadow.
They projected it.
They projected it outward. They found a leader who said, you aren't the problem. They are the problem. They are the chaos. They are the greed.
Because the people were not in touch with their own inner darkness, their own capacity for fear, they saw it entirely in the other.
And von Franz uses this incredible analogy of a trap door.
Yes. Explain the trap door.
She says that if you know your personal shadow, you can close the trap door. You can look at a situation and say, wait, I'm projecting my anger right now. This is my stuff.
You take ownership of it.
Right. But if you don't know your shadow, the trap door is wide open. And through that open door, the collective shadow, the archetypal evil, the mob mentality can literally rush in and possess you.
Wow. That perfectly explains the polarization we see today. It's not just a polite disagreement on policy anymore. It's this intense, visceral feeling that the other side is inherently evil and my side is pure.
We are seeing a mass projection of shadow material everywhere. It is classic shadow projection. It's what Peter Crone talks about in the source notes as the lie of inadequacy.
Right, the addiction to feeling broken.
Yes, we feel broken inside, but instead of fixing the internal break, we try to fix the world by destroying the people we think are breaking it.
So the Bamboo Nomads argument here, the Shadow to Freedom Roadmap, is that you can't legislate this away. You can't just vote your way out of mass psychosis.
No, you have to integrate it, one person at a time. You have to actively close the trap door, because if you don't own your shadow owns you.
And by extension, the collective owns you. Okay, so let's say I do the work. I go to therapy, I face my shadow, I reclaim my authenticity. I'm no longer projecting my baggage onto my neighbor. That's great for me. I'm healthier.
Right.
But the Bamboo Nomads' goal is a conscious nomad network. How do we actually move from me fixing me to us building something better together?
This is where we shift from the psychology of the individual to the sociology of the group. We need to talk about Otto Scharmer and systems theory.
Moving from the shadow to the social field.
Exactly. I loved his farming analogy in the notes.
It's so simple, but it frames the problem perfectly.
It does. He says you can't just try to fix the plant, you have to tend the soil.
Right.
In any group, whether it's a family, a startup, a whole country, the soil is the quality of the relationships between the people.
And if the soil is toxic,
the crop will die.
Yeah.
Period. It doesn't matter how smart your policy is or how good your intentions are. If the relationships are based on a false self, if they're transactional, defensive, ego-driven, you cannot get a regenerative result.
You cannot grow a healthy forest in poisoned soil.
He calls this the necessary shift from an ecosystem to an ecosystem.
Okay, an ecosystem versus ecosystem.
Right. An ecosystem is siloed. It's me versus you. It's driven entirely by the false self's need for survival.
And an ecosystem.
An ecosystem is aware of the whole. It understands that my well-being is inherently tied to your well-being. But, and this is the practical part, you can't just decide to be an ecosystem. You need a technology to get there.
And this is the U process, which is part of the daily workflow for this conscious network they are proposing.
Yes. Scharmer outlines this U-shape as a workflow for a group. It's how you process reality without falling back into old habits.
Walk us through it. What's the left side of the U?
The left side is sensing. It's observe, observe, observe. But it's a very specific kind of observation. It's not just looking for data that confirms what you already think. It's sensing from the edges.
Meaning looking at the places you usually ignore.
Yeah.
The uncomfortable data.
Exactly. And to do that, you have to fight 3 enemies. The source material lists them explicitly, and they are fascinating.
The voice of judgment, the voice of cynicism, and the voice of fear.
Yes.
Which honestly sounds exactly like the voices that dominate social media algorithms right now.
No.
Judgment, cynicism, fear. That is the trifecta of modern engagement.
They absolutely are. Judgment shuts down your open mind. Cynicism shuts down your open heart. And fear shuts down your open will. The U process is about actively silencing those voices so you can actually see what's happening. It is a daily discipline.
So you go down the left side of the U, observing without judgment, and you hit the bottom. Retreat and reflect.
This is the moment of stillness, connecting to the inner source, asking, who am I? What is my work here?
That connects right back to Mate's authenticity.
It does. You have to listen to the inner GPS. You cannot skip this step, because if you skip the bottom of the U, you are just reacting from your trauma.
And then you come up the right side of the U act in an instant.
Rapid prototyping. You don't wait for a perfect 5-year plan. You try something, you get feedback, you adapt. It's learning by doing.
So the conscious nomad network that Bamboo Nomads is building isn't just a group of people hanging out in Bali drinking smoothies.
Not at all.
It's a group of people agreeing to use this specific operating system. Face the shadow, observe without judgment, act from authenticity.
Yes. And participating in that requires a very specific type of person, a specific archetype. And this brings us to Bernice Hill's work on the spiritual warrior.
Now, spiritual warrior can sound a little, I don't know, aggressive. Or maybe a little too Dungeons and Dragons for some people.
It can. But in this context, warrior doesn't mean aggression. It refers to the immense discipline required to hold space.
Right.
Hill describes the spiritual warrior as someone whose primary weapons are compassion and insight.
There's a phrase in her notes I loved. Holding the tension of opposites. What does that actually look like in practice?
It's the ultimate antidote to polarization. In an ecosystem, if I disagree with you, I feel like I have to defeat you. I collapse the tension into I'm right, you're wrong.
It's binary.
Exactly. But a spiritual warrior can hold the tension. They can see that we need order and freedom. justice and mercy. They don't collapse into black and white thinking. They stay in the gray until a new solution emerges.
And the sources show this isn't just philosophical high ground stuff.
Yeah.
They actually apply this to money, which is usually where most spiritual plans completely fall apart.
This is where the rubber meets the road. If you are a warrior for a new system, you have to fundamentally change how you interact with resources. The current system is built entirely on scarcity and hoarding, extracted energy.
Oh, that connects right back to the soil analogy.
Yeah.
The wealth was the relationship.
Exactly. It regenerated the soil. The spiritual warrior views money not as a scorecard, but as a tool to irrigate the ecosystem. It transforms money from a weapon of power into a tool of connection.
There is one final piece to this puzzle that we have to address before we wrap up. Because honestly, asking people to face their childhood trauma, look at their shadow, hold the tension of opposites, and completely rewrite the economic system.
It's a tall order.
That is asking a massive amount. It sounds exhausting.
Frankly, it's impossible if you don't feel safe. That's why the sources bring in somatic experiencing.
The nervous system aspect of all this.
Right. You cannot be a spiritual warrior if your body is stuck in fight or flight mode. When we feel biologically unsafe, we immediately revert to the false self. We revert to survival.
We stop listening and we start fighting.
Exactly. So the network itself has to be a safe container.
Porges calls it co-regulation, right?
Yes. My calm nervous system helps calm yours. If I can hold space for you, you feel safe enough to actually look at your shadow. If you feel safe, you don't need to project your fear onto an enemy.
It circles back to the anchor story again. The founder left Syria, a place of total deregulation, total physical and emotional threat, and found Bali, a place of co-regulation.
And that external journey is the metaphor for the internal one we all have to take. We are trying to move our own bodies from Syria to Bali, from a state of constant threat defense to a state of flow and connection.
So let's zoom out and look at the whole map here. Shadow to freedom. It really is a clear sequence.
It is, and it's a rigorous one. Step 1 is reclaim authenticity, stop the tragic transaction, and listen to your inner GPS. Step 2 is integrate the shadow. Close the trap door so you don't become a conduit for collective madness.
Then step 3 is tend the social field. Use the U process to move from ecosystem to ecosystem. Build the soil.
And finally, step 4 is emerge as the spiritual warrior. Hold the tension, use compassion, and rewrite your relationship with resources.
And the underlying promise of all of this is that collective liberation, actually changing the world, is not a top-down process. It's an inside-out process. You can't mandate it. You have to grow it.
It reminds me of that Jung quote from the notes. The renewal of the world depends on the individual's relationship with their inner pattern.
That's the core takeaway. We tend to think our private struggles, our anxieties, our little grudges, our insecurities don't matter to the big picture. But this research suggests that your private inner life is the only thing that actually matters.
The state of your soil determines the fruit of your life and the health of the entire field around you.
It's empowering, but it's also a heavy responsibility. It means I can't just doom scroll and blame the politicians anymore.
No, you really can't. You have to look in the mirror first.
So to wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a question to chew on. We've established that the social field, your family, your team, your community, grows out of the soil inside of you.
So the question is, what exactly are you planting in there right now?
If we took a soil sample of your inner life today, what would we find?
Are you composting old resentments and planting seeds of fear? Or are you doing the hard work to till that soil and plant seeds of insight?
Because whatever you're growing in there, wait, let me rephrase that. Because whatever you're growing in there, that's what the rest of us are going to have to eat. Think about that. Thanks for diving in with us.
See you next time.
Now, if this conversation stirred something in you, know that this isn't just a podcast. It's part of a wider journey. We're exploring what it means to live, create, and build communities from awareness rather than reaction, through a growing experiment called Bamboo Nomads. It's not a brand, it's not a program. It's a living network of people exploring regenerative living, inner work, and new ways of building together across places and cultures. If you feel curious, just follow the journey. Stay close to the conversations, and when the moment feels right, you'll know now to step in. Until then, keep listening inward. That's where the real change begins. Thank you.